Coming back today with an MMA company fighter spotlight. We have Ryan the Predator Parker, newly signed athlete with MMA company. Ryan is a 4-3 professional coming off of back-to-back wins, fighting out of Norfolk, Virginia with Team X Combat Wrestling Traps. Ryan, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. I know we were talking a little bit offline about some things that you got going on. First, wanted to talk about this management company you signed with, and what you're looking forward to working with them moving forward.
Yeah. So I recently signed with Whiteout Promotions. Sean White, he's a guy that I actually had a chance recently back in August to go out to Jackson Wink and train out there for a few weeks, just a chance to get around some high-level pros. And, just a chance to elevate my game. And while I was out there, I was just networking, talking to people, asking some of the guys there, like, who's your management, saying what are some of the places you've been able to fight. And, Whiteout Promotions and Sean White was a name that came up from a couple of them. So, reached out to him, just started talking to him. And, while I was there and once we got back, me and him conversed a couple of times. And, I just kind of liked what he was talking about. So, we went more in depth, kind of started working out an agreement and I signed with him. And now, he's been doing some really good things for me as far as sponsorship opportunities, just things to get my name out there and get me more involved with the fight scene and more, I guess, known as far as the outside portion of our sport. Because, for me, I'm a guy that I focus on the inside. I like to fight. I like to compete. So that's always been my main focus. So, teaming up with Whiteout Promotion, such a promotion that has, such good knowledge in that field has really been a blessing.
Yeah, and you said something, when you were out at Jackson Wink, you were networking with people. And I don't think a lot of people who know or who don't know a whole lot about the fight game understand how much networking actually goes into the sport of MMA.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about, the importance of networking in our sport and how it kind of, propels you to that next level and gets your name out there?
Yeah, for sure. Like I was one of those people who at first really didn't understand the importance of really networking and getting yourself out there and really just making those connections with people. I was coming into it. I was one of those amateurs that would just fight, just fight and everything else would take care of itself. But saying once you go pro and you start to kind of see how things work, you really understand. It is a business at the end of the day, and you have to put yourself in the right positions to build those connections that's going to make that path up the ladder, easier. So, over the last, couple years, especially since I've been a pro and, I've had a chance to go around and fight for different promotions and kind of see how everything works. I've been really, really focused on just, trying to build those connections. So like I said, when I went out to Jackson Wink, I made an effort to make sure I talked to some of those guys. And, as you build relationships, start following people on Instagram and social medias and seeing how their managers are promoting them, and just started to realize, okay, I need to get a machine like this behind me, at the point I'm at in my career. So it's very important. It's more than just fighting. You gotta be in front of the right eyes, and being the fighter, that's not always the biggest thing we can focus on. We have to make sure we're prepared to win the fight. So it's always good to be able to build those connections that'll help you outside the cage manage the things you need to.
Yeah, and especially in kind of the world that we're living in now, you see a lot of guys with a similar record to you, 4-3, 5-3, 4-2, that are getting that call to the UFC, and you have to believe that, that networking has something to do with that. A good management company, being able to be in the right ear at the right time of someone who makes those decisions. So being where you're at now in your career, is that something that you're kind of setting your sights on as that next step is where you want to go?
Yeah, definitely. And that was a big part of, once I went out there, that was a big part of me going out there, just to, experience that world-class training and that world-class competition in the room. Because, at the end of the day, that's the goal. We want to be, we're all striving to be champions, world champions, one of the best in the world to do this. So, I just started to really want to surround myself with those elements to get into that point. So, like I said, as I started to see the managers are really beneficial to, like you said, getting yourself in front of the eyes that you need to be in front of. And like you said, people are getting called up. The UFC's been calling people for contender series spots and things like that, left and right now. So it's all about, really when you're in that pivotal moment of your career, making the right choices. What I'm saying, getting in front of the right eyes, making the right connections, and that's just where I am right now, realizing that going 2 years into my pro career now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I was checking out your record a little bit earlier, and you kind of hit on this when you said you were just a fighter who wanted to fight. You took a lot of amateur fights in a very short amount of time. I think it was
yeah,
15 fights in 3 years, right?
something. Yeah, 15, 16 fights in 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did you, first decide, hey, I want to fight MMA? Were you a wrestler? Did you have a striking background? Where did that drive come from to make that first walk to the cage?
It's funny. I actually didn't. I didn't see myself being an MMA fighter at first. I did have a wrestling background. I wrestled in high school. Once I graduated, I had some opportunities to go wrestle in college that ended up falling through. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to pursue those. So I just ended up like staying back home playing football near where I grew up. But that allowed me in my off season and things like that. I wanted to stay near wrestling. And my high school wrestling coach, who's now my current head coach for Team X Combat Wrestling Traps, Xavier Bell, he started training a few fighters. And I was just coming back, just trying to stay in the sport. So I was, trying to get in there to help teach some off-season wrestling camps or whatever, anything they needed. And, he was just kind of like, well, I'm transitioning into this. Can you come be his wrestling partner? And, he was a guy about 185, 205, so similar size to me. So I got to come in and, help him adapt wrestling over in any way I could, be his wrestling partner. And from that, it just kind of kept growing into, hey, will you do jiu-jitsu with him? I was like, I don't know jiu-jitsu, but I mean, you teach me whatever you want, and you say I'm there to help him. Then it was, you want to be his kickboxing and striking partner. I was like, again, what I'm saying, I just know how to fight out the hood, but what I'm saying, if you show me what to do and give me a headgear, I'll get in there with him. So, from there, I just started to see like, okay, what I'm saying, I can kind of do this. And they were, they started pushing me. It was like, you're really good at this. You're picking it up. We're showing you all of this. You know, uh, you ever think about doing it? And I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know. I don't want to get kicked in the head. It's it's a rough sport. So, and I was playing football still, so I still had aspirations of like maybe I'll try to continue on in football after. But then once I got done with that, graduated from college, it was just like I had this transition period where it was like, okay, well, let's see what's next. And it was just an opportunity to do an amateur fight. And, I took it. I ended up losing that one, which I think fueled me even more. Maybe if I would have won, I'd have been like, all right, yeah, I did it and been out. But then that fueled me to be like, okay, no, I can dominate this. I just attacked it the wrong way. So from there, I took another fight, probably like a couple months after that, and then from there, I was just started rolling through it. If I got out of a fight without any damage, I was like, when's the next one? Let's do it. So I kind of got just obsessed with it, and next thing you know, I'm 20 fights in.
Mhm. Yeah, and with fighting as often as you were, I'd imagine that there probably still are camps, but it's more of your just kind of fine tuning things at that time, right? Because fighting, 5 times a year, you're pretty much in camp all year round.
Yeah.
So were you kind of seeking out opportunities, or were you just always available? A promoter hit you up, you'd be like, yeah, I'll fight.
I think it was a little of both. Like you said, when you're as active as I was, there was really no downtime. So, I kind of got in and just got entrenched in it, and I was training every day I could. Um, you know, Training because I felt like I had to catch up. I was coming in with wrestling, but then I was like, okay, well, I got to learn how to do jiu-jitsu at a high level. I got to learn how to strike at a high level. So it just like all the different aspects that I had to like take and bring together just intrigued me, and like, seeing how good you can get with everything and become a well-rounded fighter, it just really excited me in doing it. So I was always just like, coach, if anything's there, put me in and see if I can go. And of course, once you start getting your name out there, people, they see somebody just blowing through fights, 7 fights in like 8 months. I think when I first started, they were
Mhm.
like, okay, we need him on our show. So it was a little bit of both. At first, I was just trying to stay ready for anything, and then as you're doing that, your name's gonna get out there. You're gonna get opportunities coming towards you, and that made me stay on the grind even more.
And then you were, grinding through those amateur ranks, and you got to a point in, in your amateur career where you said, "All right, it's time to make some money." So, what was the determining factor? 15, 16 fights in as an amateur, where you decide that, all right, I can make some money doing this. I'm going to go pro now.
Um, just I think the love of the sport. Like I really fell in love with the process, like making yourself better. I've been an athlete since I was 12, 13 years old. So uh, when I was finished football, it almost felt like a void was there. I needed something that I could every day get up and say, all right, I gotta be better than I was yesterday. So as I was going through my amateur career, you start out thinking, okay, let me see how good I can be at this. Then you really start to see, like, man, I'm watching John Jones and Anderson Silva and all these greats, Jose Aldo, uh, on in the UFC, and I'm just like, man, like, what if I can be there? And as you're continuing to get better, you see yourself growing. You're like, I can get there. I can get there. And like you said, as you start to just, you get to a point where you've put in so much work, and you're just like, I think I'm ready for that jump. It's now or never. I was like 24 once I went pro. And I mean, that's not a late start, but there are some, that are starting at 20, 21. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, I got to a point I felt really confident in the skill set I had got up to that point, and I was just like, you're getting better, you're doing well against top level competition. I started toward the end of my amateur career. I started not so much trying to fight where I was at, and I was kind of trying to go out and say, hey, let's go here where we don't know anybody, and saying they don't know us, and let's see how you doing this talent pool, let's see how you doing this talent pool. So once I started to do that and started to see, like, okay, I'm going to all these places and still having success, I think it's time to make this jump and try my hand at the professional ranks. So
And you said something earlier about you've been an athlete pretty much 12, 13 years old, always competing, always getting better. And when some people go into the cage, right, they're in it for blood, they're in it to kill that person across from them.
mm-hmm.
Is that your mentality going in, or are you more the mentality that I tend to fight with, which is, this is a sport, right? I'm going to fight like it is a sport, and I'm going to kind of play the sport of MMA when I'm in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think you have to have a degree of both.
Mhm.
You know, I feel like I said, going back to my very first fight, it made me realize the art of MMA, because I feel like that first fight, I went in there like that. I went in there like, I'm going to take this guy's head off, it's me or him. And, say it didn't go well for me, So after that, I was able to switch over and be like, okay, there's an art to this. There's a, there's an understanding of the strategy in there. It's not just a brawl. You're going out there. You want to be technical. You want to be sound. You want to have a plan. You want to be executing and working towards something. So I think uh, that really shifted me to that point. And like you said, it put it back to me on my athletic career. It's like, okay, this is a sport like you've been doing all your life. It's not something you just go in there and it's who's the tougher guy. It's discipline, it's work ethic, it's perseverance. It's all of that still wrapped into this. And, it's just in the form of physical fighting.
Absolutely. And, I never wrestled, growing up, coming through high school, but I did play football, and you can kind of see the levels of football players, right? When you're on the field, and, you see a guy that's going to go D2, D1, you're like, okay, he's at a whole different level than anyone
Yeah.
else that's on our team, right? You just came from Jackson Wink, where some of the best fighters in the world trained. So how did you feel where you're at compared to the level of some of those top tier fighters?
Oh yeah, I mean that was one of the most eye-opening experiences I've got to, experience in MMA so far. I got to in my debut, I got to fight for Bellator.
Mhm.
So that was like the first real experience of seeing like world-class athletes and getting to see like, okay, there's nothing, there's no difference between you guys aside from, training and years of experience. So you can get there. And then, for me, just going out there to Jackson Wink this past August, it was even more of a like reassurance that like, hey, so you get to see how dedicated and disciplined they have to be, because out there, everything is eat, sleep, breathe, training, fighting, preparing, and being ready. And it was just, it was a great opportunity to just see how, some of those work, like Holly Holmes, Michelle Waterson, Diego Brandow, a bunch of Christian Edwards, Davion Franklin, guys that are now in the UFC and Bellator and top organizations, and seeing how they got to approach their craft every day. It opened up my eyes to just see like, okay, even more how much of an art it is, and how dedicated and disciplined you have to be to what you're doing, and just really focused me up. And it made me come back here and realize, okay, maybe I don't have all of that out there here, but I still need to be doing as much as possible here, until I can, go back out there whenever I get the opportunity to. It just made me realize that you got to ramp everything up. What I'm saying, this is the level you have to be at to compete with world class athletes. So it's been a fire in me ever since I came back.
Yeah, and I think also when you come back from something like that, I've had some training partners that have gone and trained at high level gyms like that as well, and they come back and you almost feed off of their energy, right? Your training partners are almost going to level up now because of where that you have to be, not just as a fighter but also as a training partner. So
Yeah,
going and training at those places almost makes your entire gym better from just a couple of days or a week there, because you can bring so much knowledge back.
exactly. And that's what I've felt since I've been back. A lot of guys that are, saying, been my training partners for years, they've come back and they got to see like, man, like you. And I said, I wasn't out there a super long time either, so it would be, just to see the growth that I got in those few weeks that I was out there, coming back here, like you said, being able to show it and implement that stuff into our training. Like, I brought a lot of things that we were doing there to just training sessions that I've been having with, guys that I train with, and they're like, man, this is how they're training out there. I was like, yeah, and it's been a real blessing, not just for me, but for anybody who's in reach of me. I try to come back and give
Mhm.
everything that I've received, going and traveling and doing the things that I've been able to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think a big part of our sport is passing that knowledge on to your training partners, to, the next generation, whatever that may be. But then looking forward into the future, you and I were talking about how, um, you fought some fights at 185, and then, kind of moving more towards the 205 weight class moving forward. Um, what kind of prompted that decision of fighting up a weight class, and how do you feel walking around, knowing that you're going to be fighting at 205 for your next one?
Yeah, it was definitely a decision that came over just time, just really seeing. I was fighting at 185 toward the end of my amateur career. I had moved down, and it was just one of those things where we thought that was the best move. Everyone wants that advantage of being the bigger, stronger guy, but sometimes those weight cuts can actually be detrimental to what you're able to do in there. And I think just over time, as I'm 27 years old now, about to be 28 in December. And, just as I was getting older, I just started to see my body started to, your body starts to change at 26, 27 years old. You start to get, your full man strength, your
Hmm.
man size. And, it just my body started to hold weight differently, before, when I was fighting at 185 toward the end of my amateur career and my early professional career, I was sitting around at like 215, maybe 220 at the most. And, so I really couldn't get much higher than that without having to like completely eat like trash and just do all the wrong things. So, so I had a high enough metabolism that staying there was easier, and then getting down to, I like to try to stay within 15, 20 pounds at the most of my fight weight, if possible. Just so, anytime a fight comes up, you're always within range, within striking range. And at 15, 20 pounds out from, say, 185, so I would be sitting at 200, 205. I had to be in decent shape to maintain that size. Like I said, my body would just naturally get up to 220. if I didn't, stay on my miles 3-4 times a week, stay in the gym, stay on my cardio, my HIIT training, things like that. So as I start to get older, those marks start to move up, and now I turned 26, and now I'm hitting 230 easier than ever before. And next thing I know, I'm like, okay, with the pandemic shot my weight up heavy, and I was like, okay, yeah, we definitely might need to look at 205 because we got up pretty heavy with the pandemic. But we're back in striking range at 205. And then, like I said, just looking at my fights where I would fight at 185, and then it got to a point where 185 fights were difficult to find. So we would take a 205 or a catchweight fight, and we started to get to see, like, okay, so you fight at 185, so you fight heavier, and those fights where I were getting 195 or 200 catchweight, you just compare the performance, compare the energy. And it just it looked like that person that was fighting heavy was just a way more fueled fighter, a way more energetic fighter. He could do more. He didn't have to. It was no drain on the body. He was at full go, full strength. And I would rather fight at full strength and just let the skills be the determining factor of who comes away with the W, as opposed to trying to get that advantage and maybe hurting myself in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everybody kind of reacts to weight cuts differently as well. Some people can cut a massive amount of weight and then it doesn't really seem to affect them. And then, other people, they only cut 10, 15 pounds and they just look sucked out. They're drained in the cage. So that's kind of, a whole different aspect of fighting where you kind of also have to figure out what weight you want to fight at. And, I'm excited to see you at 205, feeling hydrated, feeling healthy, with all of your energy. And you were saying you kind of came out slow and sluggish in your first rounds in a couple of fights. So, to be able to get out the gate fast too also really helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, looking forward into your career, I know you just signed with a management company, so they're probably looking for different fights for you. But do you have any dates in mind? Anything you're pinpointing? Any opponents that you are kind of looking at to fight at this 205 weight? Anything we can look forward to see the next time you're back in the cage?
Not so much any opponents, but I'm definitely looking at getting on to some bigger promotions as far as, me and my management, we've been talking about CFFC and LFA, just trying to start getting into those ranks and facing off against that competition because, like we all know, those are big feeders for the UFC, for Bellator, and for those higher level promotions. So I think I'm to a point now where, I've established a little bit of a record for myself, 4-3 with 4 first round finishes in all of those wins. Starting to really get my footing, a couple wins back to back. Aside from that one fight against Andre, had that one went my way, I'd be on a 5-fight win streak right now. And like I said, I just think that going back down to 185, that fight really affected me, and I came out slow in that fight when I could have performed better. So, just now with everything from the formula that we've taken in and kind of started to put together, we think we've got a winning solution that we want to start trying to put out there in front of the right eyes, start to test ourselves and get out there and start to make waves in the ranks.
Awesome, man. We're excited to see it. Looking forward to the next time you're back in the cage. Before I let you go, anybody you want to give any shout outs to, training partners, coaches, sponsors, what have you, floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. So first off, I want to give a shout out to, of course, the home team X Combat Wrestling Traps, all the guys over there. My other team that I train with, Trampa Muay Thai. My guys over there, they're at the UFC gym, Virginia Beach out here. Bunch of other training partners. My guy Ryan Wilson over at Tiger Muay Thai, Grindstone Athletics, the whole 757 VA. Much love to everybody here. Want to shout out my sponsor, Massive Industries. They're actually the one who got me that opportunity to go out to Jackson Wink, help cover a lot of the costs and make it, just make it a lot easier to do. So shout out to them. Shout out to the Spine Group, Virginia Beach. They're my chiropractor office. They keep me together when the body's starting to fall apart. You know, keep my adjustments right. They do all of my physicals, everything like that. And yeah, just want to shout out all my supporters, everybody who follows me from day one, family, friends, loved ones. I appreciate it so much, and you know, I'm doing my best to try to take this thing as far as we can go. So you know, just continue to watch, continue to support, and continue to look out because I'm trying to go to the top.
Awesome, Ryan. We're looking forward to it. Keep grinding, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.